Okay, Mercedes, we're up to Siman Nun Base. Important halachas about what happens if you come late to Shul. If you come late to Shul for Shachris, Pezuka to Zimra, what is the order of priority? What you miss out? So two horrors. Horror number one is that it's always good to come on time. We'll see that in a second because missing out is not ideal. And the second thing is Rabbi Bernstein always used to say that if a person comes late to Shul, the first thing that is sacrificed are the karbonos. That's what he said. Anyway, says the Mechaber Din Nun Beis Misha Shah Love Beis Hakneses, etc. One sif. In Baal Beis Hakneses, a guy comes to Shul Umotz Tzibur B'Soif Pesukah de Zimra, and he sees that the Shul already well into Pesukah de Zimra. Oimer Baruch She'oma Ad Mehulal Batishbachis. He says Baruch She'oma until the end of the bracha, Mehulal Batishbachis. Va'achkach til David. Then he says Ashrei Ad Me'atov Adolam Haluka. Va'achkach Haluka Hashem Es Hashem En Hashemayim. Ad Livnei Yisrael Ad Krove Haluka, which is I think the third Haluka. Va'achkach Haluel Kel B'Kodshrei Ad Kol HaNeshama. So he says Baruch She'oma. He says Ashrei, the third and the fifth Haluka. Says the Ramah. If he has got more time than that, so he can catch up and catch Baruch Hu with the Tzibur, then Yoimar Hoidul Hashem Kiru, he says Hoidu Ad V'Hurachum until halfway through. V'Yedaleg Ad V'Hurachum Shekodim Ashrei, and then he jumps. Ki bentayim ein l'rak psukim melukotim, because the interim is just sort of a collection of different psukim. V'achkach yishtabach, and then he says yishtabach. And then he says the brachas which are before Kriya Shema, Yetzer, etc., Shema and the brachas of Shema. V'yispala l'matzibur, and therefore you can daven from there and Shemon Esrei with the tzibur. V'im ein shuhus kol kach, i.e. he comes late and there just isn't time even to say that. Yedale gam mizmar halu es Hashem en hashemayim. You skip out that haluka. Says the Ramah. And even if it's tighter for time, lo yomerak baruch she'omar util David v'yishtabach. Then you go down to the minimum, i.e., you say baruch she'omar, ashrei, and yishtabach. V'imkvar hischilu hatzibur yoytze. If the tzibur, you get to Shul and they've already passed yishtabach, they've already started yoytze ve'ein shuhus lema pesukah de zimra afilu b'dilug, and there isn't even time to do the sort of very brief skeleton pesukah de zimra. Yikra kriya shema b'birchaser matzibur v'yispal limohem. You should say Shema and the brachas, just jump, just go straight to the birchas of Kriya Shema and daven Shema and all the brachas and Shemon Esrei with the tzibur. V'achakach yikra kol pesukah de zimra b'loi bracha shelifneihem v'loi shelachreihem. And then you go back and you do pesukah zimra, but you do it without the brachas. In other words, you say Baruch She'oma without the brachas, you say Yishtabach without the brachas. Says the Ramah, u'mikol makom yoymar. But what's very important is you've got to say the brachas that you've got to say in the morning, Birchas HaShachar, Birchas HaTorah, that can't be skipped. Okay, it says the Mishnah Berurah, Sif Cotton Aleph, Imba, Avalachatchila, Roy Lovele Beis HaKnesses B'Hashgama Kadesh Lo Yistarach L'Daleg. That's the point I made at the beginning. The Lechatchila, of course, you should go to Shul early so that you won't have to skip anything out. Kosva Sfarim, the Sfarim write, Sfarim normally is a reference to more Kabbalistic works. Shahamagid, his here Beis Yosef. The Beis Yosef, the author of the Shulchan Aruch, he used to have a Magid, which means the Malach would come and teach him Torah, and the Magid, this Malach, would teach the Beis Yosef and would warn him and tell him how important it is, Lov Beis HaKnesses B'Hashgama, to come to Shul early. It's very important to say Pesukah de Zimra in order without skipping anything else. Because someone who skips out and he says Baruch She'oma and Ashrei and this Haluka, that Haluka, you're mixing up the pipes, the pathways, the tubes that the tefillahs go to Shemayim. You're confusing them all because you're getting the order wrong, and therefore, from a Kabbalistic point of view, one should avoid doing that. And therefore, there are Anshe Maisa from sort of Mukubalim, if they would ever come late or they need to skip out, they would just do it in the regular order that they would normally daven. That which the Zohar writes, that it's very important to daven al HaSeder, that's only But if it means if you're davening b'yechidus, you're late, you're in a hurry, it's important to just keep the order. But if you're davening with a tzibur, then it's important to daven the tefillah b'tzibur, and like the Shulchan Aruch describes, you skip out. Like we said, but if you come late to shul and the tzibur already davening, even the Mekubalim would say that it's important to skip, so that you can still daven with the tzibur. Even a person does not regularly daven with a minyan, he doesn't get up so early. If on one occasion he comes to shul and he sees the shul are up to the end of Pesukei Zimra, he should follow the procedure of the Shulchan Aruch, and i.e., you should sort of truncate, you should reduce your Pesukei Zimra so that you can daven b'tzibur, like the Mechaber has said. Because you don't come regularly to shul, and this time make sure you can daven at least with a minyan. Minimally, you should say those three. Okay, so there's some more interesting things there. Take a look at footnote number 1. Even a person, if he davens b'yechidus, and you're the same story, it's not just if you come to shul and you see the shul are davening that you should skip some Pesukei Zimra, and in order that you can catch Baruch Hu. But even if you're davening at home and you see the Zman Kriyashma is coming, Kosovo Orach Ne'eman, Shedalim Pesukei Zimra. Okay, look at number 2. If you sort of skipped and you see that actually there's some time to catch up, it's meduyuk from the Mishnah Berurah earlier that when you catch up you should do it in the order of Pesukei Zimra. Okay, and now it's got some very interesting ha'aras in number 3. Same thing, you're davening Ma'ariv, you come to shul and the shul's already started. How do you deal with that when it comes to Ma'ariv? In Motzei Tzibur Shekvar Koru Kriya Shema, you come to shul for Ma'ariv and they're halfway through Ma'ariv. V'roitzim lamed b'tefillah. Kosav lekamon, we're going to say Mishem later, sheyamud lispal lemohem. You come to shul, they're about to start Shemona Esra for Ma'ariv. The ikka tefillah b'tzibur is Shemona Esra. Therefore, you daven Shemona Esra with them. Kivin shetefillah b'tzibur adifal smichas kul tefillah. That's preferred than juxtaposing to being soimech geula tefillah, which we say Gal Yisrael, and then we go straight into Shemona Esra. So if you come late to shul for Ma'ariv, the ikka is you daven Shemona Esra with them, and don't worry about being soimech geula tefillah. And then if you look at the end of the next paragraph, Mikol Mokum ba'ofen sheyochel lahasig minyan acher. If of course you can find a later minyan, you go to Hagas and they're halfway through Ma'ariv and they're about to start Shemona Esra, you could daven Shemona Esra with them. But if there's another Ma'ariv in 5-10 minutes later, then it's of course better to do that. Don't skip out Kriya Shema and brachas. So davening the Shemona Esra, just starting then and then going back and saying the Kriya Shema with the brachas afterwards is not ideal, and better to daven the later minyan. Next paragraph. What if you come to this shul, yeah, and Ma'ariv here is still 6. Soon it'll switch to 6:55, right? Or you come to Ma'ariv and you see they're about to start Shemona Esra. So you could go to a different shul, you could go somewhere else for Ma'ariv. So he says in Biglal she'ispal b'minacha yisarich l'shanet his makom tefillas hakavua, it means you davening a different place. Better to skip Pesukei Zimra, or in Ma'ariv it's brachas and Kriya Shema. If you're going to daven in a shul where it's not your mokum kavua, that's going to disturb your davening stam, and therefore it's better to daven Shemona Esra with them and to make up and to be medaleg Pesukei Zimra if it means davening with your mokum kavua. Very interesting psak of Shlomo Zalman. Okay, Siv Cotton base. B'soif Pesukei Zimra, says the Mishnah Berurah. So you come to shul and they're already well into Pesukei Zimra. after you put on tefillin, you oim dim tzibur b'soy pesukei zimra. The tzibur at the end of pesukei zimra. V'ayim b'chayodem shekosov. Im nisach elovo yir al kol ponim lo ma kodim sheyaschel ispalel. What's very important, that even if you come late and you want to sort of truncate to pesukei zimra, what's very important is to daven birchas anatilis daim v'lokai neshama or birchas Torah. The lav hochi das a prichodesh v'lokai neshama shelo yemachat tefillah ki yotz birchas mechai mesim. The kind of shama you can't say after davening, you can't make that up because you're yoitza in mechai mesim. V'ayim b'soif hasim ma'imem hey, sorry, mashikosu b'zeh. U'birchas HaTorah yesh des b'zimin memzayin sivches im lo mad miyad achat tefillah. There's days whether you learn straight after davening or not. Ayin sham and netilas daim lo niskan rak kodim tefillah. And the whole point of netilas daim is to do it before tefillah. So you can't catch that up afterwards. You've got to do that before you start pesukei zimra. Omer Sifkat and Gimel Kadesh Yel Yuchel Ispalim Matzibur. You can truncate, you can shorten your pesukei zimra so that you can daven with the tzibur. Ki atfilim matzibur tzuya umukubelis in Hakadosh Baruch Hu, because davening with the tzibur is more auspicious that Hakadosh Baruch Hu should answer those tefillahs. Yoser, i.e., you have a bit more time. Then Ratzalema Yosim Ichdei Shir Hamira Til David V'chol Halukas Al Kanasham. More, you've got a bit more time than just saying Ashrei and a few of the Halukas. Then Tehim Kodim Medin Lamir Haidu, because they have priority. Ashrei and Halukas before Haidu. Sheheim Heim Ikka Pesukei Zimra, because Ashrei and the Halukas are the Ikka part. They're the main part of Pesukei Zimra. That's the name of the Gan. V'kos Hamogan Avram Oid Amiras Yivarech David Ad Hashem Tifatechu Gam Kein Kodim Lahaidu. That after in the priority order you've got Ashrei the Halukas, then you've got Yivarech David to L'Shem Tifatecha, and that is more than Kodim than Haidu. Of loy kodim halaluka, but it doesn't come to before halukas. Again, so if you come late to shul in the morning, you say the birchas anatilis daim, birchas Torah, etc., etc. Then, if you're running very tight, baruch she'ama ashrei yishtabach, bit more time, the third and fifth halaluka, bit more time halalukas, vayvarech David, haidu, etc., etc. It depends on how much time you've got. And then, of course, after davening, you make up. Sifkot and hey, v'hu rachum. B'Shabbos, what about if you come late to shul on Shabbos? B'Shabbos yedalik hamizmorim shemesifim b'Shabbos minim lamatzech ad yichvoid v'yom ekmeh b'chol. All the Shabbos pesukei zimra, that sort of takes second place, because why? Kihem tadirim, because the chol pesukei zimra is tadir, and therefore that has priority, and the Shabbos stuff that you say afterwards. V'miyeshu, we'll see nishmas is a bit different. V'miyeshu hus loima yom alam natzech u'ledov v'shanos u'tfilim Moshe heim kodim l'sham bizmerim. Again, there are priorities within the pesukei zimra of Shabbos. So in other words, if you come late to shul on Shabbos morning, you say the weekday pesukei zimra, and if you have time, you can add in lam natzech ledov v'shanos and tfilim Moshe. They're the three most important Shabbos pesukei zimra. V'heim kodim l'sham bizmerim kedis b'zoya. Oid kosov the Shabbos mechuyev loymar nishmas. That on Shabbos that you are mechuyev to say nishmas. Vehi nikras, and that's called in Psachim Kuf Yud Ches birchas hashir. The Gemara in Psachim Kuf Yud Ches calls nishmas birchas hashir. Umutzav shedaleg mizmerim, and it's better to skip other mizmerim in order that you can say nishmas. V'im lo shehus klal, and if you haven't got time to say that, then what is the absolute minimum for Shabbos morning? Yom Baruch Shama Til David nishmas v'yishtabach ayin sham. So the absolute bare minimum on Shabbos morning is Baruch Shama Ashrei nishmas and yishtabach. Yikra Krishma. Okay, let's carry on. Yikra Krishma, and then you say Krishma. Ubetshuvas Mishkanas Yaakov Herech B'Zeh V'Chiach. The birchas Baruch She'amar V'Yishtabach Tzakona Kutuma Him Me'atanoim. The brachas of Baruch She'amar and Yishtabach are very old brachas. They're from the time of the Tanoim. V'Alkein Mutav Lispala B'Yechidi, and therefore it's better to daven B'Yechidus Mishidalig Legamri birchas Baruch She'amar V'Yishtabach than skipping that out in total. But if you don't have to skip it out totally, sheyuchel leimar baruch she'ama va'asher v'yishtabach be'esha chazan marich hamilas miyotzav v'hala. He's sort of being marich after Baruch Hu, and you've still got time to say Baruch Shema Asher Yishtabach. L'kul alma yasakein, you should certainly do that. Because the key priority is to daven Tfilat Shmona Esra with the tzibur. That is davening b'tzibur. Ach poshet the kol zeh b'tanai l'alidei lo yachzim echzes kriyishma kadinim v'or lekaman v'lo dochinim min chaim mitzasei ketuna b'shvil tfil b'tzibur. So of course the priority is to daven Shmona Esra with the tzibur, but the only thing that it doesn't push off is saying Shema before at the right time. If you davening tefillah b'tzibur means you're going to say Shema later after the zman, that's not doicha, and the ikka is to say Shema, which of course is mitzvah same in Torah. Okay, v'yispal lemoim sif cotton zayin avalim lo yagia letefillah tzibur Shmona Esra afilu miyaschel b'yetzer. If you're not going to hit them at the time of Shmona Esra, you're not going to say Shmona Esra at the same time as the tzibur, lo yaschel klal kol alma, then there's no point. The whole point of skipping Pesukei de Zimra is so that you can daven tefillah b'tzibur, which means davening Shmona Esra with the rest of the tzibur. Rak sheyispal kasei de b'lo tzibur, v'lo yispal Shmona Esra levad im tzibur. The smichas gula tefillah b'shachris odav min tefillas b'tzibur, because shachris wise, being soimech gula tefillah is more important than tefillah b'tzibur. So if you're going to skip everything and just suddenly just throw yourself in and daven Shmona Esra, and then afterwards catch up, you've abandoned being soimech gula tefillah. That's no good. Achareihem dahainu. Baruch Shama v'yishtabach ki lo niskin l'rov haposkim ki im kodim tefillah, because for many poskim you that was only said before Shmona Esra, before you can't make it up afterwards. Or mikal mokum yoma. So this is going on the last Ramah. You wait to make sure you've got to say the brachas shemechuyev levarach b'boker. You've got to say that before when you come to Shul. Says the Mishnah Berurah, Ratzalema shemechuyev laomrim achat tefillah im lo omrim kodim tefillah. You've got to say them afterwards if you didn't say them before. V'ayin le'el b'siman mem zayin sif ches in brachas Torah. Or Mishnah Berurah sham b'sif katan yud zayin mashe kosav nesham b'shem Eli Rabbi. V'ayin prichodesh shekosav b'shem brachas lekan neshama lo yom achat tefillah shekva yotz b'brachas mechayim mesim. V'ayin b'prim godim shekosav d'midivrei haramah lo mashmakein. V'chein b'sefer Marim Mordechai chelik olav. V'chein b'shai tshuva b'siman vov kosav d'mistabel le'yos. V'chein mashma be'er hagra b'siman zeh. V'ayin be'anocha. Mikol mokum. Yoyis tov lechatchila lot says aliba de kol alma. You should be yoyis according to everyone dahainu shem hischil kvar lispalel. If you already began davening, v'shachach mikodim brachas l'kan neshama, and then you say, hey, I forgot to say l'kan neshama. Yechavim beferish brachas v'nei manata she'ein roitz lifter b'zeh brachas l'kan neshama. When you say v'nei manata, you should have in mind that I'm not being yaitz the bracha of the l'kan neshama. V'oz l'kula alma yivarchen achat tefillah. Then everyone agrees you can say l'kan neshama after the tefillah. Why? To nehi the brachas in strichas kavanah lot says. Even though brachas don't need kavanah to be yaitz, mikol mokum heichad mechavim beferish lot says, and therefore you would be yaitz with this by saying v'nei manata even if you didn't have kavanah. But if you have active negative kavana, I have in mind not to be yosel and kind of shama in the bracha of nemanata. Shalol says shapidami, that works. Ein sham oid except in the prima godim. I'm behalacha shekosavnu the imshachach birchas haTorah v'hischel birchas kriyishma. If you forgot to say birchas haTorah and all of a sudden you're halfway through the brachas of kriyishma, yechavim beferish birchas avarabba lifter birchas haTorah. Like we said before, during avarabba you can have in mind that this is going to count as my birchas haTorah. V'yir lilmo tekav lachat tefillah. Make sure you learn straight after davening. V'yetze b'zeh ali b'dekula alma. Good. Okay. Kol brachas. What are kol brachas? V'ayim b'sefer sifkot yud. V'ayim b'sefer ma'amar mordechai. V'sefer nahar shalom. The zman kol brachas will kol hayom b'diavad. How long have you got? So he says, b'diavad you got the whole day. V'chein kosav b'sefer ma'aser rav la'agro. V'hoyis shom oid yiseh. Ta'afilu layla ad shas hashenu chiyuv nimshach chaleim kaidem. You can even do it at night time before you go to sleep. Yeah, Pesukei Zimra before you go to bed. But it appears to me that if sleep is overcoming you, your eyes are closing, you can't say the brachas of Mavashena. That's totally incongruous. Hamavashena, which we say in the morning when we wake up, thank HaKadosh Baruch Hu for removing sleep from my eye. You forgot to say that, and you're going to bed now, late at night, to start, and your eyes are closing, to start saying thank you Hashem for removing sleep from my eye. Well, it's about to come to hit you in any second. So it's incongruous to say that. Tugun's Birchas Hamazon is very similar to Birchas Hamazon, how long you've got to say Birchas Hamazon. Okay. Really, you shouldn't do any of these brachas after Seif Zman Tefillah, which is 4 hours into the day. But the Eved, I'll call upon him, but the Eved, you can go till Chatzos, because there are those who say you haven't lost out on the brachas after 4 hours, and you can do it till Chatzos. And those who want to rely on those opinions that you can do it even after Chatzos in the afternoon, then it is possible to make it up then. But certainly, what emerges is that to come to Shul on time beforehand and to say Pesukei Zimra slowly and leisurely and with kavanah is the preferred course of action. Okay.